She spent her whole life learning how to fold herself small enough to fit inside the silence others expected of her. It didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, the way storms begin as nothing more than a shift in the wind. Every time someone told her she was too loud, she made herself quieter. Every time she was mocked for asking questions, she swallowed her curiosity. Every time she voiced a thought and was met with dismissal, she tucked her words deeper into the corners of her mind. She learned to smooth her edges, soften her opinions, dim her glow just to keep the peace. On the outside, she looked calm, obedient, agreeable. On the inside, she was storing all the truths she wasn't allowed to speak, like lightning trapped behind a thin sheet of sky. The world around her rewarded her silence. Compliments felt like chains. "You're such a good girl. You don't cause trouble. You know your place." They had no idea that every time they praised her for being quiet, they were tightening the lid on a pressure they couldn't see. She spent nights filling notebook after notebook with the words she couldn't say aloud. Dreams, fears, ideas, fury, hope, understood her better than most people did. And though she didn't realize it then, every sentence she wrote was a spark. Every truth she captured was a promise she would one day have to honor. The breaking point didn't come with drama or shouting. It came with exhaustion, tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of letting others define who she was supposed to be. A single moment of stillness made her realize how heavy her silence had become. And in that moment, the first crack formed. She didn't break, she didn't fall apart, she simply shifted. Something inside her whispered that she was meant for more than this quiet cage. That whisper was small, but it was enough. Because even the biggest storm begins with the softest change in the air. The first shift in her voice didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like relief. It happened on an ordinary day, in an ordinary conversation, when someone tried to embarrass her for speaking up. Normally, she would have laughed it off, lowered her gaze, and shrunk herself back into the comfortable corner of invisibility. But that day, something in her refused to bend. She felt the familiar burn in her chest, the one she used to smother, rise all the way to her throat. Instead of swallowing it, she let it out. Not with rage, not with trembling fear, but with a steady, clear truth that surprised even her. The room froze. For the first time, she didn't apologize. She didn't backtrack. She just spoke, and the world had no choice but to listen. She walked away stunned, replaying the moment over and over as if analyzing evidence. Was that really her voice? Was that strength really hers? For years, she believed her thoughts weren't worth hearing. Yet when she allowed one small truth to escape her lips, it felt like oxygen filling lungs she didn't know were starved. That single act of bravery lingered with her, humming beneath her skin like newly awakened electricity. It reminded her that her silence had never been peaceful. It had been suffocating. In the days that followed, she found herself speaking more freely. The words came easier now, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she finally understood the cost of holding them in. Every no she said without guilt, every idea she shared without hesitation, added another layer to her growing strength. Some people noticed the difference and grew uneasy, as if her voice disrupted the order they depended on. But that unease only confirmed what she was beginning to realize. Her silence served others, not herself. And once she tasted the power hidden in her own voice, she knew she could never go back to the girl who stayed quiet to make the world comfortable. Her voice didn't need to be loud to be powerful. Its strength came from certainty, not volume. As she grew into her truth, something remarkable began to happen. The world that once dismissed her started to feel her presence. Even before she spoke, she walked differently, stood differently, carried herself with a confidence that didn't need explanation. People could sense the shift, like sensing thunder in the air long before the rain begins. She found herself speaking up, not just for her own sake, but for others who had been taught to shrink the way she once did. When she saw someone being ignored or dismissed, that familiar fire rose inside her. But now it guided her forward instead of holding her back. She challenged comments meant to belittle. She questioned decisions meant to exclude. She refused to laugh at jokes meant to demean. The very things she once let slide because she feared conflict became the exact places where she drew bold, unshakable lines. And every time she did, her confidence strengthened, weaving itself into her identity like threads of steel. But with her rising came resistance. Some people who were comfortable with her silence became uncomfortable with her strength. They accused her of changing. They said she was becoming difficult, too opinionated, too bold. She almost laughed because they were right. She had changed, and she had no intention of shrinking back into the version of herself they preferred. The truth was simple. Her rising made them face parts of themselves they didn't want to see. Her clarity exposed their manipulation. Her courage magnified their insecurity. Her strength revealed their fear. But she no longer carried the burden of making others comfortable. She finally understood that storms don't exist to be controlled. They exist to shift the landscape. And she was becoming exactly that. A force that shook the ground beneath those who once tried to bury her. They couldn't silence her anymore. So their next tactic was to break her. It began subtly. Cold shoulders, quiet whispers, conversations that stopped the moment she walked into the room. People she once trusted suddenly kept their distance, as if her courage was contagious, and they feared catching it. At first, she didn't understand what was happening. She thought maybe she'd done something wrong. Maybe she'd pushed too hard. Maybe she was becoming the problem. That uncertainty slipped into her thoughts at night, wrapping around her confidence like fog. Doubt is powerful when you've spent years being told to stay small, and they knew that. Their intention wasn't to confront her, it was to isolate her, to unsettle her, to make her question herself enough to give up on her own voice. The rumors stung the most, not because she believed them, but because they came from mouths she once trusted. They twisted her strength into arrogance, her honesty into aggression, her boundaries into rudeness. And for a moment, it worked. The storm inside her dimmed. She felt herself slipping back toward the quiet version of herself she had fought so hard to outgrow. The weight of their disapproval pressed on her like a heavy sky before a downpour. But storms are born in pressure, not peace. And in that dark moment, she found clarity she had never felt before. Their attempts to break her weren't proof that she'd gone too far. They were proof that she'd finally become powerful enough to threaten the systems built to contain her. She realized that if her voice wasn't shaking foundations, no one would bother trying to silence it. That understanding reignited the fire in her chest. She stood back up. Not softer, not quieter, but steadier. They wanted her to collapse under the weight of their fear. Instead, she let it strengthen her. They pushed her into the dark, and she emerged as lightning. The moment she truly became the storm wasn't marked by rage or loud declarations. It was marked by a quiet certainty that settled into her bones, like truth finally coming home. She stopped waiting for permission to exist fully. She stopped trying to fit into spaces that demanded she shrink. She stopped apologizing for her voice, her ambition, her fire. Instead of fighting to be accepted, she stepped into the world as someone who no longer needed acceptance to feel whole. And that shift, that internal uprising, was more powerful than any scream could ever be. Her voice grew, not in volume, but in presence. When she spoke now, people listened because they could feel the conviction behind every word. Her choices were intentional, rooted in the understanding that she was no longer living to please others. She was living to honor the woman she had fought so hard to become. The same people who once tried to silence her watched her now with widened eyes, some in admiration, some in fear, most in disbelief. They weren't used to her standing tall. They weren't prepared for her truth to echo louder than their doubts. And they certainly weren't ready for the realization that their attempts to break her had only sharpened her strength. She built what they tried to destroy. She claimed the dreams they told her to abandon. She walked into rooms they never wanted her to enter and held her ground with the calm, unstoppable force of a storm that knows its own power. Those who underestimated her learned quickly that storms don't negotiate, they transform. She didn't rise to spite them. She rose because she finally understood that her voice was not a threat, but a calling. They wanted her silent. Instead, she became the storm that swept away every limit they ever placed on her in the end. Her story is not just about defiance. It is about awakening. She did not become a storm to destroy, but to cleanse, to clear, to reclaim the parts of herself the world tried to take. What they called too much was exactly what made her extraordinary. What they tried to silence became the very force that lifted her higher than they ever imagined. Her journey shows that the world will always try to quiet the voices it fears. But it is up to each of us to decide whether we will shrink to fit their expectations or rise to meet our own truth. She rose, and in doing so, she gave others permission to rise too. Her strength became a beacon. Her courage became a map. Her voice became proof that no matter how tightly someone tries to close a door, a determined soul will always find a way to break through. She is not the girl who hid her thoughts in shadows. She is the woman who speaks with clarity, purpose, and power. They wanted her silent. They wanted her compliant. They wanted her small. But she became a storm, unpredictable, undeniable, unstoppable. And now her voice echoes through every space they once tried to close to her, reminding the world that when you try to silence someone who was born to rise, you do not create silence, you create thunder.